Hey you guys know that Butterick just dropped their new spring patterns. And what other way than your girl to sit down with you guys and share 12 patterns with you guys that Butterick just dropped. But let's be real. Have you seen them? Well, if you haven't, don't worry. I have you covered. I'm going to be sharing those Butterick spring patterns with you in this video. Hey everyone, I'm Rochelle and I'm the girl that gives you all the pattern sales, sew along, and behind the scenes of any and everything in between. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys the Butterick spring drop that just dropped. Now these patterns range from 70-21 to 70-36. That's about 14 patterns, and I think I'm going to be sharing with you guys about 11 to 12 patterns. Now, one thing I want to mention is I'm not going to be sharing home decor fabrics, apron patterns, kids patterns, but there is one pattern that is a family style pattern that I will be sharing with you guys today. So, in order to keep this video short, sweet, and to the point, give you all the deets and the news that you can use on this video, let's go ahead and get into it and also compare the patterns that are the same. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, first pattern is 70-21. Now, all of these are Butterick patterns, so I don't need to tell you Butterick this, Butterick that. We're just gonna go ahead and get into the number like I do on most of my videos. So the first pattern is 7021. Now, 7021 is a shirt dress style pattern. Now this pattern is a misses dress with belt, sleeve, and length variation. It's a mid-knee or mid-calf length dress. It has pointed collars, concealed button placket, gathers at the waist, darted bodice, and a side seam pockets. Now view A dress has your drop shoulders and is sleeveless with bias tape at the armhole. And then view B dress has the short sleeves with the top stitching as well. Although top stitching is definitely optional, I would say depending on the fabric, make sure you do some top stitching. Now this pattern is an average to sew pattern. In terms of sizing, now first before I get into sizing and fabric, just note that all patterns come in either PDF or paper pattern there. But let's get into the sizing first. In terms of sizing, it comes in 2 pattern envelopes, 6-14 on the first one and 16-24 on the second pattern envelope. Let's talk notions and fabric. So in terms of notions, for both views, you're going to need some buttons. You're going to need 10 5/8 inch buttons, and then you're going to also need a 2-inch covered button kit. Don't forget to get your 4 eyelets within a 1/4 of an inch opening, as well as your package of single fold bias tape. Now, let's talk about fabric. So in terms of fabric, you're going to need you can use cotton blends, poplin, sateen. Do not skip out on the interfacing that you're going to need in order to do this dress. Now this dress is great to use as battle of the shirt dress, which will be dropping pretty soon. And it's like, I'm going to be honest with you, in a few days. All right. So just note that you can use this pattern for your dress, or battle of the shirt dress is shirt or shirt dress. The announcement video is coming in a few days. I am super excited. All right, but that's not what we're here for. Let's go ahead and get into the next pattern. That last pattern is 7021. Next up is 7022. So Butterick 7022 is a misses and women's dress into length with petite lines, which is different. They normally don't have those lines, but this one has the petite line. Now this dress is a fitted and lined sleeveless dress. It have the square neckline, front button opening, front and back darts, and length variation. One of the lengths you can do a little past your knees, and the other one is calf length. Now, view A have your front pocket, so don't skip out on that. This is an average to sew pattern. In terms of sizing, it's 2 pattern envelopes, 10-18 and 20-28 on the second pattern envelope. Let's talk fabrics and notions. In terms of fabric first, you can use cotton blends, linen, tweed, wool blends, just to name a few there. Don't forget, you're going to need some lightweight fusible interfacing. In terms of notions, for both views, you're going to need some buttons, okay? 1-inch buttons to be exact. For view A, you're going to need 10 And then for view B, you're going to need 8. Now for view B, you're also going to need 1/4 of the inch sew on snap. Okay. So don't skip out on that sew on snap. Now let's say what this pattern reminds me of. So this pattern reminds me of Butterick 6674. And Butterick 6674 is a Mrs. Dress sash and bag pattern there. Now so Butterick 6674, that one is a close fitting one as well. This one have like your mid knee length. Also, you have like the self ruffles there. Now 6674 comes as one that have the separate cup sizes for this one. And then you have a bag pattern as well. So this one is really similar to 6674. If you do not have Butterick 6674, I'm going to say consider picking it up. Go to your stash, see how they compare very closely to each other. All right. But once again, the last pattern, or this pattern, is 7022, similar to Butterick 6674. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern. So before I move into the next pattern, this pattern also reminds me of another pattern, which is the McCall's pattern. And that pattern is McCall's 8434. Now I know Neff from the Corny Rainbow did a complete sew along for that pattern. Now the reason why I'm saying that this one is very similar is because of that square neckline, okay? So McCall's 8434 is that button front knit dress that have the two different length option, but it also features that square neck. You can contrast that pattern as well. It has band detail, sleeve variation. It has all of those good things for that pattern. But once again, it's McCall's 8434. Now, let's go ahead and get into the next pattern. Next up is 7023. Now, you guys know this is a art pattern. And when I say this is an art pattern, I'm talking about Catherine Tilton. Now, if you missed my last Butterick video, I literally said that Catherine Tilton's pattern are pretty much the same. Now, I'm not throwing shade at her or anything. I'm just saying, like, I noticed that almost every season we get the same thing from her. I don't see anything new. It's either going to be some form of a tunic or a wrap top situation. Now, for this pattern, 7023, it is the Mrs. Knit tunic pattern by Catherine Tilton. Now, this pattern is a very loose fitting knit tunic. It has 3 panels in the front and back. Also 2-piece 3/4 length sleeves and a classic neckband finish. Now, view A has pockets and view B is a 2-tone or a color block and has the optional hand stitched seams as well. Now, this pattern is an easy to sew pattern. Let's talk sizing. In terms of sizing, it's 1 pattern envelope, extra small to extra large for this one. Let's talk fabrics and notions. So in terms of fabric, any type of knit fabric of your choosing, that could be cotton blend knits, interlock knits, jersey, ponte, just to name a few. Now for this one, it is actually a no notion pattern. However, you're going to need some stay tape. And the stay tape is to stabilize, okay? And you're probably gonna use the stay tape right at the shoulders to stabilize the shoulders because you are using knit fabric. Now you guys know, your girl know that it looks like, I believe, 2 patterns. So the first pattern is Butterick 6633. And this one, once again, is by Catherine Tilton pattern. Now that pattern is a loose fitted pullover tunic by Catherine Tilton for that pattern. Now this is one of the older patterns, and from the description, it says that this pattern is a trendy, versatile knit tunic that have shaped asymmetrical hem with neck and fabric variations for this one, okay? And now this pattern, 6633, also comes in extra small to extra large. What are the odds? Okay, I'm just saying. But this one actually says it's average to sew on the back of the pattern envelope. And some of the fabrics you can use is ponte knit, interlock, jersey, sweatshirt, fleece, just to name a few there. But this one pretty much reminds me of 6633. Let me know in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on 6633 and 7023. So 7023 and 6633. Now, in addition to that, this pattern also reminds me of another pattern. Also by, I think this pattern is by Catherine Tilton as well. I believe it is. This pattern is Butterick 6877. It is a Catherine or an arch pattern. Catherine Tilton, aka arch pattern. Now this one is a loose fitting pullover top, have asymmetrical hem and neckline. Didn't I just read that for the same Butterick 6633? You get my drift. Okay, so all we're doing is basically just changing it up every season. All right. But I feel like what stood out for 6877 is the top stitching, because it have decorated stitches on the contrast back pocket. It also features contrast back pockets for this pattern as well. It's optional if you want to use that. Okay. And view B is your color block view as well. Now this pattern is of course an average to sew pattern, but once again, it's 6877. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern. Next up is 7024, which is a pair of misses pants in 2 length and a tie belt. Now this pattern is basically wide leg pants. It have side pockets and side back seaming, front pockets. Okay. So it has like a side front pocket situation. It features belt carriers, fly front zip, and a hook and bar closure. This pattern also features back welt pockets. Now for view A, it has the stitched hem. It's a white stitch hem at that. And then view B has a matching tie belt. Okay. This is an average to sew pattern. So in terms of sizing for this pattern, you're talking about 2 pattern envelopes, 8 to 16, and then 18 to 26 on the second pattern envelope. Let's talk fabrics and notions. So in terms of fabric for this pattern, you could use linen, denim, twill, satin, just to name a few. You're also going to need a 7-inch all-purpose or exposed zipper. And the reason for that is because you're going to be doing a fly front zipper. You cannot use an invisible zipper in order to do a fly front zipper. All right. But once again, this is 7024. Now this pattern reminds me of a pattern that came out, I think it was summertime. That pattern is 6998. It's super similar. That pattern is the Mrs. Shorts and pant pattern there. Now for that pattern, it's also like shorts and pants is semi-fitted. It sits 1 inch below the waist and have like a partial elastic waist. That pattern also features a fly front zipper and a button closure, side front pockets. It has all pretty much the same similar details as the new one, 7025. All right, so I think this one is pretty much the same. Y'all let me know. How are y'all thinking about the patterns being pretty much the same? We've been doing this for a little while, but let me know. Let's talk in the comment section below. All right. But once again, this pattern is 7024. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern. Next pattern is 7025. Now 7025 is a Mrs. skirt. And of course, it reminds me of another pattern. Now this skirt is a full tiered skirt. It has invisible side pockets. It has invisible side zipper, waistband with the hook and bar closure, and a stitch hem. Now, view B has a purchased trim as well. Now, this is an easy to sew pattern. In terms of sizing, it's 2 pattern envelopes, 4 to 12, and then 14 to 22 on the second pattern envelope. In terms of notions and fabric, let's start fabrics first. You can use cotton blends, you can use cotton, you can use linen blends, poplin, just to name a few. You're also going to need a 7-inch all-purpose zipper as well as 2 hook and eye closure. Now, in terms of view B, which is the tiered one that has like lace, you're going to need 15 yards of lace. Oh my goodness. 15, that's 15 yards of lace. That's crazy. All right. But this one is nice, but it's 7025. Now, I forgot to mention which ones I was going to be picking up and which ones I was going to leave on the shelf. But just to go back just a quick second, I will not be picking up 7021. I will not be picking up 7022. I will not be picking up 7023. I will not be picking up 7024. Now, 7025, honestly, I have the pattern that I'm getting ready to tell you. So the pattern that this reminds me of is Butterick 6999, which means that I'm not picking this pattern up at all because I have Butterick 6999, which is a Mista skirt, and it's loose fitting, line tiered skirt that have elastic waist casing. So for view A, you can put some pom-pom trims on that and all that good stuff, kind of like what you see in Butterick 7025. So I'm leaving this one on the shelf as well. Once again, this is 7025. Moving over to the next pattern. Oh, before I move over to the next pattern, this pattern, 7025, also reminds me of McCall's 8066. Now, I have a full complete sew along to McCall's 8066. It was a different pattern back in the days in the 700 series. So I'll put both of those numbers in the description box below. Also link to the sew along here, but also put the link to the sew along for McCall's 8066 in the description box below. Open up the description box so you can see everything that I have mentioned, videos and everything will be in the description box below. All right, back to regular scheduled viewing. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the next pattern. So the next pattern is 7026, which is the Mrs. Jacket by Palmer and Pletch. Now this jacket have the shawl collars, long sleeves with the slit, shaped hem, and it's optional. You could do shoulder pads, but you don't have to. Now, in terms of view B, it has the front button opening and patch pockets with the flaps on the front. All right. Now, some of the fabrics you can use are Ponte, double knit, and wool as well. This is an average to sew pattern. So in terms of sizing, it's 2 pattern envelopes, 8 to 16 and 18 to 26 on the second pattern envelope. Let's talk notions. Since we already kind of talked about fabrics, let me talk about notions a little bit. So in terms of view A, this is pretty much a no notion pattern for view A. The only thing you're going to need, which is optional, is a pair of 1/2 inch shoulder pads. That's it. All right. Now, in terms of view B jacket, you need 3 7/8 inch buttons for that. All right. And that's to go down along the front portion of your jacket to keep it closed. Can you use snaps? I'm pretty sure you can, but I would not. All right. Or shanks. All right. I would not for my jacket, but do what works for you. All right. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern, which is 7027. Now, 7027 is the Mrs. Vest and Pant pattern. It reminds me of the new Simplicity pattern that just came out just this season, but we'll get there. Let's talk about this one. So this pattern is a fitted line vest. It has button front closure, decorative welt and back vent. And then it also features high-rise pants. It has flared legs, stitched front crease, and then fly front zipper, couture waistband, and hook and eye closure. Now, these pair of pants are, well, I'm just going to say the whole pattern is an average to sew pattern. In terms of sizing, there's 2 pattern envelopes, 8 to 16 and 18 to 26 on the second pattern envelope. Now, let's talk fabrics and notions. In terms of fabric, you have your linen blends, Ponte knit, your stretch wovens and stretch crepes. But then in terms of your notions, for view A, you have 4 7/8 inch buttons. And then view B, you also need a 7-inch all-purpose or exposed zipper and a hook and eye closure. All right. Now, when I say that this pattern reminds me of a pattern that just released with Simplicity for the spring, it's Simplicity 3108 for that pattern. And that pattern is a Mrs. Vest skirt and pant pattern. Now, one thing that I like about Simplicity 3108, and this one also, which I'll get back to the Butterick pattern here shortly, but this one is definitely like a wardrobe builder. And because I work in corporate America outside of the house, those are the things that I tend to want to wear. The pants, the vest, you know what I mean? So I think Simplicity 3108, like I have already said in my release video, which I'll put here, and it'll also be in the description box below, so you can click on that and see that as well. Now, for Simplicity 3108, excuse me, I am a little tired, but we're gonna get through it. Simplicity 3108, that pattern is definitely one that I have already picked up. I have already slotted it for this year, but with the closure of Joann's, I have to order all my fabric pretty soon, okay? I'm gonna go in Joann's and see what they have still on their shelf, okay? But I haven't been seeing any really good sales, so I've been staying my happy tail up out of Joann's. If you know, you know. I have 3 videos regarding Joann's. All 3 of those will be on a playlist linked right after this video. Also, it's linked in the description box below. All right, so 7027, I'm considering possibly picking this pattern up because I do like the fact that this is a cord pattern. And I also like the fact that, you know, I can make the vest, I can make the pants. I could do this vest 2 to 3 different times. I could dress it up, dress it down, wear it with tennis shoes, you know, so I like both the vest as well as the pants. And the pants really reminds me of the New Look pattern that I did a full complete sew along to. I think that pattern number was 6769, I think. I'm going to put it up here so you're able to see the cover of that video, also description box below. All right. But once again, this is 7027. Moving over to the next pattern, which is 7028. It's a missus top with belt and pant for this one. Now this one is semi-fitted line top. It has princess seam, button front closure, and a matching belt. It also have wide leg pants with a invisible side zipper. Now this pattern is an average to sew pattern. In terms of sizing, it's 2 pattern envelopes, 6 to 14, and then 16 to 24 on the second pattern envelope. Let's talk fabrics and notions. So in terms of fabrics first, fabrics, okay. You can use crepe, jacquard, linen blends, and wool suiting, just to name a few there. In terms of notions, you're going to basically need some buttons for sure. You're going to need some a covered button, which is a 3-inch opening. You're also going to need some eyelets for that, and an invisible zipper for view C, which are your pants. All right. But once again, this pattern is 7028. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern, which is a pair of knit. It's a knit jumpsuit, okay? That pattern is 7029. Now, 7029, I am seeing freaking numbers today. I do apologize about that. It's 7029. So 7029 is basically lounge jumpsuit. It have buttons down the front, like a front button opening, round neckline, wide legs, side pockets, and stitch hem and sleeve variations. Now, view A is the view that have the contrast. They're 2 different. You can use a solid and a print. You can use a solid and a stripe. That's completely up to you how you want your color block, if you want it, right? This is an average to sew pattern. In terms of sizings, it's 2 pattern envelopes, 10 to 18 on the first one, and 20 to 28 on that second pattern envelope. Now let's talk fabrics and notions. So basically, in terms of fabric, what type of fabric you're going to need is knit, because I already told you that this is a knit pattern. All right. Now let's talk about notions. So when you think of notions, you're definitely going to need 6 1/2-inch buttons. That's the only notion that you're going to need in order to construct this pattern. Now, this pattern does remind me of a McCall's pattern that came out, I want to say last year. That pattern is McCall's 8457. I feel like this pattern is very similar to what the model is wearing on this pattern 8457. So I just thought that it was similar and I wanted to share. But once again, this pattern is 7029. A comparison for that is McCall's 8457. Let's go ahead and move over to the next pattern. So the next pattern is that pajama pattern that I'm going to tell you about, which is Butterick 7030. Now, I know the sorority retreat is coming up in like 2 weeks. If you're okay doing PDF, when these are on sale, that would be a great pajama pattern to do. Now, I'm just going to let you into something. My dates for sorority retreat is later on in the year. And one thing I want to, yes, I am going to the sorority retreat, paid for my tickets last year and everything. But one thing that I want to say is this may be that pattern that I'm going to sew for my pajamas, because one thing I know is you're going to need a pair of pajamas. For pajama party? Okay, look, I love a good pajama party. All right, but this one right here, 7030, that would be a potential pattern to use for that. And if you want to make some pajamas for your family, this is the pattern to do that. Now, I'm not going to get into the full details of Butterick 7030. Why? Because it's pretty much the same for every family style pattern that we see a lot of pretty much every season. We are bound to see at least 10 loungewear patterns in the rims of either nightgowns or pajamas. So I'm going to spare you the details of this one, and we're going to go ahead and get into the next pattern. So the next pattern, I'm going to jump from 7030 to 7035, which is a vintage pattern. Now I'm skipping anything in between because most of those are children patterns. So 7035 is a 1960s Mrs. dress, jacket, capelet, and overskirt for this pattern. Now, this pattern is basically a fitted sheath dress. It has like a scoop back. It has a back zipper, knee length slim skirt. It has kind of like a lightly gathered waist as well. Now, one thing about this is like it doesn't have a view number, but you could do the dress, the jacket, the overskirt, the skirt. I mean, like you could mix and match and pair this and make so many different outfits with this pattern. All right. Now, this is an average to sew pattern. In terms of sizing, it's 2 pattern envelopes, 4 to 12 and 14 to 22 on the second pattern envelope. Let's talk fabrics and notions for this pattern. So first fabric, you can use brocade, you can use satin, just to name a few there. That's for the dress, the jacket, or the capelet. Now, in terms of the overskirt, you're going to need some sheer fabric like your organza or your silky fabrics as well. You might be able to get away with a charmeuse, but you need something that's either silky and I said silky, but I meant sheer. Okay. In terms of notions for this one, you're going to need a 16-inch zipper and you're going to need hook and eye closure for this one as well. Now, don't skip out on the piping that you're going to need in order to do this pattern. Once again, it's 7035. Let's go ahead and get into the last pattern, 7036, which is another vintage pattern. Now, this one is a 1980s jumpsuit dress and sash pattern. Now, I had a jumpsuit similar to this back in my heydays in the 80s because I'm an 80s baby, by the way. But this is a very loose fitting straight leg jumpsuit and dress. It's below mid knee or in evening length, which means a longer view. Now, it has a front hemline split with the shawl collar, front and back stitch pleat, waist pleat, and front zipper closure at the waist. Now, the jumpsuit also features like a side seam pocket, and you can put some shoulder pads in there. That was the thing in the 80s, so that's optional. You can do some top stitch trim. Now, view A has drop shoulders, the full length, and tapered sleeve. Now, view B, D as in David, and view E have the extended armholes. And then you also have this pattern has the self sash that have the shaped ends for this sash as well. Okay. Now, in terms of this in terms of this pattern, it is an average to sew pattern. In terms of sizing for this pattern, it is 6 to 14 and 16 to 24 on the second pattern envelope. Let's talk fabrics and notions. So in terms of fabric, you can use any type of fabric like your crepe, your challis, your silks, just to name a few. In terms of notions, you're going to need a pair of shoulder pads, which are optional. And then you're also going to need a 7-inch zipper with hook and eye closure. Okay. This is a vintage pattern. Now, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and be like, oh, I'm going to buy this pattern. This pattern does remind me of a pattern that has like this 1980s feel for it. I can't remember the pattern number, but if I think of it while I'm editing this video, I'll go ahead and put it up. All right. Well, those are all 12 patterns that dropped. Well, it was more than that, but I'm only going to show you 12 that just dropped with Butterick Spring 2025 patterns. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section below which ones are you picking up and which ones will you leave on the shelf. I believe that in this collection, I seen two that I'm definitely going to be picking up and one potential. I'll leave it in the comment section below and y'all tell me what you think. All right. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. And if you like content like this, you guys know what to do. Give your girl a like on this video. Comment in the comment section below. Share this video so others could see the drop and my commentary for this drop. And do what's free. And that's subscribe for more content like this. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, keep sewing.